Alright, so now that we've seen how to run some JavaScript in an internal way, we're going to see how we can start interacting with elements on the page. But at the moment, all we're doing is alerting something. So that's a pop-up which tells the user something. But very often, of course, what we want is for our code to affect something that appears on the screen itself. So let's get rid of our button and type in anything we like. So I'll go back to the good old standard hello world. And then let's just run that and make sure that that's updated. There we go. And of course we get our pop-up as well. So what if we wanted, using JavaScript, to update the contents of this paragraph tag and change the text to something else? That's a basic example of something we might want to do in a real life page. For example, if we've got a login form and someone clicks the login button without having entered their details, it would be a useful thing to show them a message to tell them to enter their details. And this is how we would do that. So let's get rid of our alert instruction and see how we access this element here. Now, as you may remember, the classes and IDs that we used in CSS, I mentioned, can also be used in JavaScript. And IDs in particular are very powerful because the thing about IDs is they refer uniquely to an element. So it's very easy in JavaScript to get an element by its ID. So let's give this paragraph text an ID of text. And now let's find out the JavaScript for selecting that and doing something with it. So we start off by typing the keyword document. So document tells the JavaScript that we're going to be looking for something inside this document. Make sense? And then we use a dot to go within the document, and then we want to get an element by its ID. So you've got that top one there, and you could imagine maybe what those other ones might be used for as well. But we're going to go for get element by ID, which does exactly what it says on the tin. It gets an element by its ID. Notice also the capitalization here, because we're going to be using this throughout our use of JavaScript. This is common to many programming languages, where we start with a small letter, and then each word in the function name is the first letter capitalized. So we've got get is all small, element begins with a capital E, by with a capital B, and ID with a capital I. So that's just quite a nice way of making it readable without putting in spaces or hyphens or anything nasty like that. Alright, so this instruction will get an element by its ID. We need to tell it the ID of the element that we want. So we put in brackets, and you can see my text editor here is telling me that we need a string, which isn't the ID. So a string is just a bunch of characters. So it goes in double quotes as we're used to, and then we just put in the ID. So this will now get the element text by its ID. So we've now got the element that we want to change. How do we change it? Well, we add another dot, and then we use the instruction inner HTML. And this gets, as you might imagine, the inner HTML of this element with ID of text. And we want to change that to something else. So we set it equal to, and then whatever string we want. So maybe I want to change it to hello Rob, rather than hello world. And that's our full instruction. So there's quite a lot of new stuff in there, so take a moment to just go back and make sure you understand what each of those bits are doing. I'm going to just quickly recap it for you. Document means that we're going to get something within the document that we're working in, so that's this whole HTML document here. And then get element by ID says that we want to get an element within the document by its ID. Then we pass the ID that we're interested in, which is text, and then we want to get the inner HTML of that element, which at the moment is hello world, and then we want to set it equal to something else, i.e. in this case hello Rob. That's it. And remember, we've got an optional semicolon, and I'd recommend putting semicolons at the end, but it will work without them. Alright, let's have a look. So if we now save that and run it, you can see we've got hello Rob right there. So it might not look that exciting, but what we've managed to do there is actually change the content of our page using JavaScript. So that's a really powerful thing to be able to do. One quick thing to show you before we move on is comments within JavaScript. And this can be very useful as you're writing your code to leave comments to remind yourself later on what your code is actually doing. Or if someone else is going to be editing your script or looking at your code, it can be very useful to them as well. So there's a couple of ways to add comments in JavaScript, and they're common to pretty much every programming language out there, which is great. So if you want to have a one-line comment, you add a double / there. And then if we just run that again, it's no different at all. It still works. We still get hello Rob, but obviously the comment doesn't do anything. So you can write whatever text you like there. Secondly, if you want to add a multi-line comment, you do a / and then a star to begin the multi-line comment. And you can see that this is now commented out, this part here as well, which we don't want. So we have to end the multi-line comment, and we do that with a star and a /. So now we can put whatever we like in between those two, and it will be considered a comment. It won't be processed with the code. So we put something like this is a multi-line comment. And we can put whatever we like in there, as many lines as we want. So just to check, once again, its code still works. We haven't broken anything. All right. So that's how you do both one-line and multi-line comments in JavaScript, and it's also how we change the content of our page using JavaScript. Of course, doing that on the page load is not necessarily that exciting because we can't actually see it happen because it happens so fast we never see the hello world. So in the next video, we'll see how we can use buttons to process JavaScript on demand, i.e. when the button is pressed.